All right, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today we've entered the top 10. Yes, we've made it. I've been having an awesome time going through my top 20 Clone Wars episodes with you guys. I hope you guys have been enjoying it as well. And today we're getting into the meat and potatoes. These are big time episodes, huge implications in the Star Wars galaxy, expansion of the lore, beautiful character moments, a lot of great stuff, and I can't wait to get into it. Just wanted to mention that there will be an honorable mentions episode for the ones that just didn't make the top 20. But here we go. At number 10, we have Season 5, Episode 1, Revival. The addition of Darth Maul into the Clone Wars is nothing short of genius. Were they out of their minds to bring him back? Absolutely. But it worked out. Now, I was between this one and the Season 4 finale, Revenge. Because in Revenge, you see Obi-Wan and Asajj Ventress team up, which is so awesome to see because throughout the whole series, they have this flirty one-liner digs at each other that are so fun and kind of weird. And in that episode, they finally work together, and Obi-Wan has a red lightsaber, and the choreography in the fight is so sweet. But I had to go with this episode because it has something that makes any Clone Wars episode amazing. The King, Hondo Ohnaka. This is the episode where you see Maul and Savage starting to try to expand their empire among the underworld and the crime lords, and that kind of becomes Maul's avenue of getting his revenge throughout the rest of the series, is using the crime syndicates to undermine the power of the galaxy. And here we see him run into some Weequay pirates. And when we see Weequay Jesus, I cannot say that. When we see Weequay pirates, we know Hondo is going to come through. And seeing Hondo get out of another situation where he's sandwiched in between the Jedi and the Sith and somehow coming out better for it in the end it's just amazing. His one-liners in this episode are unbelievable. Every time he talks about Maul and Savage, he calls him the tattooed crazies. And the voice actor just needs to be commended. I don't know his name, which, I'm the worst person for not knowing it. But throughout this episode, he has so many memorable lines. In the end, when Maul and Savage are leaving, Maul's like, "You will pay for your insolence." And Hondo's like, "Huh, insolence? We don't even know what that means." And then they start shooting. And this episode is just action-packed through and through. We see Obi-Wan and, I'm going to talk about it, the Jedi that he's with on this mission, who gets killed eventually. I have so much beef with her because she was included in the Force Ghost that talked to Rey at the end of Rise of Skywalker. She was among the greats like Mace Windu, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Kanan. And somehow she snuck her way into that. And in this episode is one of her, 2 appearances in all of Star Wars, and she dies. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. But she was in the episode. But because of her death, Obi-Wan gets to dual-wield lightsabers, which we love to see. And Obi-Wan freaking wins. He takes on Savage and Maul. And I feel like at some point in this episode, you kind of see him tap into the dark side just a bit when she dies. You see there's like anger and frustration in his face. And then the way he breaks Savage Opress's leg and then cuts off his arm and pushes Maul away. It was just awesome. And then the end of the episode is another buddy Hondo and Obi-Wan moment where Hondo's like, "Look, the treasure has fallen out from the sky. Shall we go indulge, Kenobi?" And Obi-Wan's like, "All right." And then they get on the bike together and Obi-Wan has his arms around Hondo. It's so cute. It's like a bromance. It's awesome. But yeah, I can't say this episode is super deep, but it's a lot of fun. It's exciting. There's a meaningful death, kind of. And it's got Hondo. And it starts that journey for Maul where he's starting to calculate. And when he starts to calculate, that's when things start getting interesting. So that's why I have it at number 10 here. Number 9, we have Season 3, Episode 16, Altar of Mortis. The Mortis arc is so influential in the animated universe of Star Wars. And once again, it's a risk that they took, and it absolutely paid off. I don't think Mortis would work in live action. I think it is perfect in animation because you can bend some rules and people are okay with it and they can accept it. Now, Mortis is awesome because it is so ambiguous and anyone's theory could be correct. I subscribe to the theory that Mortis never happened and it was more of a dark side, light side cave experience for Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka. They all experienced it at the same time. The father does describe this planet, I'm doing air quotes, as a conduit for the Force. And to me, throughout the entire arc, even though I picked this one episode, throughout the entire arc, it more resembles an allegory of Anakin's story himself and what his future holds, but also it shows everyone their fears and their shortcomings that they see in themselves. Ahsoka is greeted by her future self who says, if you keep following Anakin, you'll turn to the dark side. And then in this episode, you see her metaphorically turn to the dark side because the brother takes control of her. In Obi-Wan's case, he talks to Qui-Gon and he's talking about, I've trained him as good as I can, but he's very powerful in the Force, and I was obviously given this assignment when I was way too young to be the master of the Chosen One. And he's having his doubts, and Qui-Gon's like, you got to keep giving him the pep talks. And in this episode, Obi-Wan is like this passive observer. He goes and gets the dagger with the sister, but he never really intervenes. He kind of just watches Anakin and Ahsoka kind of fall around him, and he, still clings to the light side, but he doesn't know how to always do the right thing, if that makes sense. He always wants to do the right thing, but his subservience to the council doesn't allow him to always get that right. And Anakin in this episode, even though he fights Ahsoka, which, a little bit of foreshadowing, you see the brother in Anakin. The brother wants to bring peace and order to the galaxy in his own dark side way, and in the process, he inadvertently kills his sister, which you can see as Anakin killing Padme, inadvertently trying to cause peace, order, and justice in the galaxy. And then the brother goes into a fit of rage and leaves, just like Anakin, and falls deeper into the dark side. And I just really like how this episode uses imagery and symbolism to kind of show the paths that they'll all take, or possibly take, eventually. And I mean, seeing Anakin fight Ahsoka is always awesome because we know what it means later on. But another thing I wanted to talk about with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka is that Obi-Wan is always framed with the sister. He's always framed on the light side. He's never really interacting with the brother himself, but here he's always with the sister. He goes with the sister to get the dagger. And even in the Colosseum, when the brother and the sister are holding Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and Anakin has to make a choice, he's being held by the sister. So I just like how it's framed that he's never tempted by the dark side, even though he's gone through so much tragedy. He'll always side with the light side. And then Ahsoka is being held by the brother, and then Ahsoka gets taken by the brother. It kind of shows that she has that potential to go to the dark side because of Anakin's actions. And so while I wouldn't be mad at anyone for putting any of the Mortis episodes in here, the whole arc is super interesting. It's ambiguous. It's really mind-blowing. I think the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't really get this, but it is really cool. But I think the second episode offers a lot of interesting new ideas. The third episode kind of focuses more on Anakin turning to the dark side, which we already know what happens. We see it. And the first episode is kind of an introduction to the world. But as I said, I believe that it was all an allegory. It was a Force cave-like experience for all three of them, and they all just experienced it together. And if you have another theory about it, that's cool too, because you're probably right. So, number 9, Mortis, Altar of Mortis. We see them later in Rebels, and I don't think because we do later in Rebels that it disproves this theory here, that it didn't really happen. So yeah, number 9. Number 8, another amazing episode inside of an incredible arc. We have Season 6, Episode 3, Fugitive. This is the arc where Fives discovers the inhibitor chips and unravels the mystery of Order 66. And without this, there is so much less context in the Star Wars galaxy. And the fact that we almost didn't get it because this came out after the show was technically canceled after season 5. We got this on Netflix a couple years later as like a Lucy. It's kind of crazy we almost didn't get this because of how much amazing content we've gotten because we knew this information about the inhibitor chip. Now, yes, I agree the next episode, Orders, is extremely tragic. And the last scene where Fives dies in Captain Rex's arms is tear-jerking, and it gives you chills in every part of your body. I understand that. But I can't pick the episode because it is really dependent on that one scene, I think, in my opinion. This episode, though, is awesome because you're part of the investigation. You know, in the previous episode, you find out about this inhibitor chip, and you're like, okay, we have no idea what it is, because at this point, we don't know what Order 66 is, except the fact that the clones turn bad. And we know that this inhibitor chip now is something of concern. But this is the episode where we actually start to understand what it is. You know, it starts with them finding out, oh, this isn't organic. This is foreign to the body. And then they're like, okay, let's check out the original DNA. They get to Jango Fett's thing. He didn't have this in him. They're like, okay, now that's weird. So this was implanted. When was this implanted? Then they go to the birthing chamber things, and they start checking all the little pods, and they're like, okay, this baby has it. Okay, wait, hold on. The whole thing has it. We all have this. What? And it's just a cool revelation because you're learning it with Fives and AZ. Speaking of Fives and AZ, they have an awesome relationship. I love that AZ becomes just as curious as Fives. And originally AZ's like, I'm only taking care of you because you're my patient and that's my protocol. But in the end, you see that AZ is genuinely interested in what's going on here. And he's almost more like a scientist and less like a medical droid. And you can see he cares about Fives. He saves Fives in multiple instances. And you just love to see a droid companion in Star Wars. It's so Star Wars. It is the cornerstone of Star Wars. So seeing them pull it off here with a clone and a droid it's amazing. And I really like their relationship. And that's one of the main reasons I picked this episode over the finale to the arc. What I also really like is the Kaminoan side and how they're trying to cover their tracks here. They're like, oh, we put this inhibitor chip in to slow aggression. Slow aggression. That's why we put it in. And when you take it out, that's why he killed the Jedi, which on the outside looking in makes sense. It's not like a bad cover-up story. Like it is kind of a good one, and it makes sense if you have no idea what's going on. You know, Shakti here as a Jedi. And you see Count Dooku checking in on them like, don't you dare F this up. Don't you dare F this up. We gave you this contract. Don't put it to shit. Our plan has been in place for so many years. And yeah, this episode is just engaging throughout. It's like a murder mystery without the real murder, honestly. But at the time, 2014, I think it was, Order 66 was still just Order 66. So being able to get this backstory and unravel this terrible tragedy and seeing that the clones got this close to freeing themselves, which I think is the bigger theme here, that Fives, as a clone, almost figured it out without the Jedi's help. You know, the clones almost freed themselves from this indoctrination, this slavery. And the fact that you see the light, you see the hope, you're like, oh my gosh, it's right there. He basically has all the info. And Shakti takes his side. You're like, yes, they're going to prove it. This is going to be awesome. And then, of course, he runs into the mastermind himself, Palpatine, in the next episode, and it all goes to shit, and we watch our hopes fade away, and we are destined to see Order 66 again. Fives is an awesome character throughout Clone Wars. He's always this voice of reason among the clones. He has this moral sense of protection against other clones that Rex does too, but Rex is subservient to the orders that he gets, and he only later on throughout the series learns to not do that. And think on his own. But Fives from the beginning is always questioning things, and Echo too, and I like how Echo continues that in Bad Batch. But him and Echo are just these moral centers for the clones, and I like how they're the ones to question things, and then obviously Fives is the one to uncover this, and then eventually pass this information on to our boy Rex, and of course Ahsoka. And speaking of Fives and Echo, would you look at what's next on the list? Our introduction to the boys. Season 1, Episode 5, Rookies. Season 1 in the top 10? Are you kidding me, Mark? What are you talking? You be quiet. Rookies is a top 10 episode of Clone Wars on any list. And if you say otherwise, you just didn't like Clone Wars, because this is amazing. It has everything. As a kid, everyone would make up scenarios of them being clones or them being Jedi. And the best part about this episode is that it's like one of those situations that you would make up with your friends. Small group of clones facing against insurmountable odds. Stakes are high because this base is so important to the Republic, and a heroic sacrifice at the end. It's beautiful, and I would watch this episode religiously. I literally bought it on iTunes on my iPod Touch to watch it whenever I could. At one point, I definitely knew every single line of this episode. But this episode just builds the stakes higher and higher as it goes on. You know, in the beginning, it's a bunch of rookie clones with one veteran sergeant in the room. And they're like, what are we doing out here? This is boring. We're just looking at asteroids coming into our planet, atmosphere, whatever. And then the sergeant reveals something. He's like, well, this base is the first line of defense to defend Kamino from an invasion. And then you're kind of like, oh, okay, so this place is a little more important. And then the commando droids show up. And the stakes get even higher because these droids aren't just normal droids. They have super tough armor and they need to be shot in the head. Oh, guess what? These are all rookies. They all probably suck at shooting. Oh, look, the sergeant's already dead. There's only 4 rookies left. And this base is taken over by commando droids. Oh, wait, you thought there was 4 rookies left alive? No. Next scene, a worm eats another one. There's only 3 left alive now. Heavy, Echo, and Fives. Boom. The boys. And then you get a little piece of hope from Star Wars. They're like, here, look. Captain Rex and Commander Cody are here. Look. And then their ship gets destroyed. And then they're stranded with these guys. So then you're like, oh my gosh, now it's even worse. Because now they can't even call for help. And then it immediately establishes that Captain Rex is way out of these guys' league because he takes one shot and kills the worm, that they literally just lost a brother to, and they shot it, and it didn't die. So you immediately see that they're way out of their league in combat ability. And then we see our boy Echo get that handprint on his armor, his shiny armor, and that stays with him for the rest of the series. We love differentiating clones here. I also really love the scene where Captain Rex comes up to the intercom, and they're like, "Is that you, Commando Droid?" And he's like, "Roger, Roger." And he just keeps saying, "Roger, Roger." And then they open the door, and he's like, "Roger, Roger." Shoots him right in the head. They take over the base, and then guess what? The stakes aren't done yet. The all-clear signal is wired. How can we send the not clear signal if it's hot wired? Oh, look, another battalion's coming. You know what we have to do? Blow up the base. What? The dynamics of the episode just constantly change, and it's so engaging to the audience, and I just love it. And then in the end, you get this heroic sacrifice. Once they set up all these bombs, Heavy's like, "Yeah, they're not sinking. I'll figure it out." And then Heavy has his epic final stand. He's throwing the guns. He's doing anything to keep these droids away from this trigger. And you hear how scared Captain Rex and the rest of the squad are, that they're like, "Where's Heavy? Oh my gosh, he didn't blow it up. We have to go back." They're sprinting back. The music's building, and Heavy gets shot. And he falls, and the music stops. And then you just hear a heartbeat. That's the best. There's just this heartbeat. And it's just dun dun, dun dun, dun dun. And they're like, "Do we take prisoners?" And Heavy's like, "I don't." Heartbeat ends, touches the panel, boom, base gone. Heavy is a goddamn hero, and this episode sets up the rest of the series that these clones will do anything for their brothers, and they're free thinking, and they're compelling characters, even though they all look the same. 5 episodes in, season 1, rookies established and set the tone for the clones for the rest of the series. And god damn it, I love this episode. And I hope you love it too. Number 5, rookies. And look at that, folks. We're already at the end of today's episode with number 6. Number 6 is a doozy. Season 7, episode 11, Shattered. "Mark, Shattered isn't in the top 5? Are you kidding me? It's Order 66, man." Guys, I understand. I know. I gotta keep the list interesting. I can't just stack the top 5 with Mandalore. I can't. But Shattered is incredible and is probably a top 5 Clone Wars episode. But it's number 6 on my list, and I'm going to talk about it like it's a top 5 episode. So what do you care? It's fine. You'll love this. Shattered, first of all, the episode title is just so mean. I can't believe they would do that. And the lead up to Shattered and its premiere was just so scary, because we didn't know if this would take place during Revenge of the Sith. And then in the first 2 episodes, you understand this is very much happening alongside Revenge of the Sith. And then you realize, I can't fully remember if I knew it was going to be Order 66 this episode, but as you realize the timeline's starting to line up, you realize that Obi-Wan is on Geonosis, that Obi-Wan is on Utapau, and that Anakin is going to tell Chancellor Palpatine that Obi-Wan has engaged Grievous, and you realize that that scene is the one where Chancellor Palpatine reveals himself as Darth Sidious. The tension starts to rise and rise. And that's just one of the great things about Siege of Mandalore, is how they perfectly stitch together pieces of Revenge of the Sith into these story arcs. And the one scene where Mace Windu's like, "I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi." And literally right after they're done talking about that, Ahsoka walks in. Like, it's so cool to picture Ahsoka being inserted into that movie. And that scene's really heartbreaking, because you just notice that Ahsoka keeps missing Anakin every chance she gets to talk to him. Yoda says, "Oh, he just leaves the room." And my favorite part of that scene is when you could tell Yoda wants Ahsoka back. He remembers, helping her out as a Padawan, and seeing these Padawan make these decisions to leave the Order, it probably takes a toll on him, because he's kind of the de facto leader of the Jedi Order, and he feels like these are his failures the most. And at the end of the scene, you could see he just wants to keep talking to her. He's like curious. He's like, "Oh, do you want me to leave a message for Anakin or anything like that?" And she's like, "No." Or he's like, "Oh, you did this as a Jedi, not as a Jedi?" And she's like, "Not yet." And it's just so heartbreaking not seeing Yoda do well with all this. And this is where the episode takes the turn. The Blade Runner music enters. The synths are low. It's haunting. It is the definition of haunting. You see the shock troopers, you know you're screwed already. When you see the red clone shock troopers, you know it's bad news. There's no dialogue. It's just this ambient music of this desolate ship, and the camera's just moving throughout. You see Maul, and then you get this beautiful scene. You get this little glimmer of light. You see Ahsoka and Captain Rex talking. Ahsoka's like, "All I've ever known is being a soldier. I thought we were supposed to be peacekeepers." And then Rex is, candid too. He says, well, if there was no war, we clones wouldn't exist. And Ahsoka's like, well, then there was one good thing that came out of this war. They give a salute. And at this point, you're kind of like, okay, I think Order 66 is about to happen, because this is too nice right now. And in the trailers, you see Ahsoka grabbing her head when they're going through light speeds. So you're like, this is going to go bad. Oh, Rex, you have a call real quick. Shit. No, not yet. I'm not ready. The scene itself where Order 66 comes through, the shaking of Captain Rex, Ahsoka hearing Mace Windu, Anakin, and Sidious all fighting in the room. Maul. I love when Maul is treated as this Force-sensitive being and not just this dark side maniac where even he senses it. He's like, something's going down. And then the worst is just when you hear the other clone troopers, the static in their helmet getting the orders. It's so scary. It is genuinely like scary to hear. And then Rex is crying. He's crying, holding it back, even just for 5 seconds. It's taking all his strength to hold it back, to show that their free will as clones has grown so much more than the Kaminoans ever predicted it would, to the fact where he would actually deny these orders. And then he says, fine, fives. And you're like, oh my gosh, Mark just mentioned that episode where fives figured it out. Oh my gosh, it's coming to fruition here. And then obviously Anakin's betrayal plays as the Order 66 music blares and Ahsoka's blocking everything. And you're just like, oh my god, this is not happening. This is not happening. And from there on out of the episode, all the clones have their helmets on. They've become these faceless soldiers. They've become these non-thinking droids, basically. And they're bathed in darkness to represent their transition. And then you get another beautiful, awesome interaction between Ahsoka and Maul. And I like when Maul is like, I was not privy to my master's full plan. You knew he wanted to start the Clone Wars, and, Maul was there for that part, but he didn't fully understand this deep plot with the clones turning against the Jedi. And I like that because Maul is this master tactician who even he thinks 5 steps ahead, which he learned from Sidious, obviously. Sidious is thinking 20 steps ahead, and even Maul is like, this is unbelievable. And Maul's like, are you going to give me a fighting chance by giving me a lightsaber? And Ahsoka's like, are you kidding me? I'm not rooting for you. I hope you die. Just give me some time to figure something else out. And Maul's like, Maul's scene in the hall is unbelievable. He cuts off people's heads with panels. He cuts an arm off to get the wrist comm. It's ridiculous, but so satisfying. Some might say better than the Darth Vader scene in Rogue One. Who knows? Who knows? I didn't say it. And the real highlight of this episode is something that is a core to Star Wars. I mentioned it in one of the previous episodes. Droids being these amazing companions to people or aliens or anything. The droids on the ship are the only ones that Ahsoka can trust. And throughout Star Wars, droids are always someone or something that people lean on. And seeing that theme come through in this desperate time is so perfect and poetic for Star Wars, that they can help Ahsoka get Rex back, take his inhibitor chip out, access the files on what's going on with these chips. And I know droids get a lot of flack throughout Clone Wars for having these really boring episodes, which I agree. A lot of their episodes aren't very compelling, but I think when done right, droids bring such an amazing element to Star Wars. Whether it be, obviously, our boys, R2 and C-3PO being in every single Star Wars movie, the only characters to be in every single Star Wars movie, or Chopper in Rebels, they always bring a brightness to the galaxy, which is so cool because they're supposed to be cold, non-feeling things, and they're always the brightest light in the room. BD in Jedi Fallen Order, he's amazing too. They're like little pets, but they can do computer stuff. But as you can see by my top 10, when droids can be introduced into the story, done well, be these perfect companions, it's really touching. And in this episode, seeing them being the last allies to Ahsoka at this point, she's literally alone, and the only things that are there to help her are these 4 droids, I think it is. And the end of this episode is exactly why this episode is named Shattered. Ahsoka's like, how widespread is this, Rex? He said, it's the entire Grand Army of the Republic. We have all been ordered to hunt down the Jedi. And Ahsoka's world, got a nice snow globe here? Here we go. You got your snow globe? Shattered. Done. The galaxy is literally in ruin because of this. And right when you get that revelation, or Ahsoka gets that revelation, guess who starts cutting through the door? Oh, so slowly, as the camera pulls away. And there's just no hope. This is the lowest amount of hope you can have at this point. And I know I just basically went through the whole episode, but the whole episode is very well done from a tonal standpoint. It really feels like the gravity of the galaxy is all coming down on Ahsoka. And the score is so excellently mixed with this tone of this Blade Runner dystopian future, this haunting feel around every corner. The violence, adds to it. And it just... Siege of Mandalore is just unbelievable. And I will continue talking about that in the next episode. Because there is more in the top 5, let me tell you. But that is the end of today's episode. My 10 through 6 favorite Clone Wars episodes. And we've already made it to the top 5. I'm so excited to release that the week of my birthday. It's almost too perfect how that worked out. As I mentioned, I will be releasing an honorable mentions for the episodes that just barely couldn't make it in, but definitely have a merit to be in a top 20. And yeah, I'm excited to keep doing this. This has been awesome. I love talking Clone Wars. And with that, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.